UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Franchise Fatigue, the little podcast on the United Federation of Podcasts, where your hosts look at movies, remakes, and sequels and discuss them for you. I'm your host, Brandon-Shea Mutella, and joining me, as always, is the ever-cool, the ever-suave, the ever-buccaneer, Zach Moore.
The name's Smith. John Smith.
John Smith. That sounds like an alias to me. You don't really have a name.
I'm from back east.
Back east. Tonight, we are wrapping up our Man with No Name series with another remake of Yojimbo, this time taking place in the Dust Bowl Prohibition era, and it's called Last Man Standing, starring Bruce Willis. And while I think we said in the last episode, we know that there's another one called I should look it up so I don't mess up the name of it. It's like Sanjuro Yogato or something like that, and it's a remake of Sanjuro. We can't find it. We know it's out there. We tried, but we can't find it.
When they remake Yojimbo again, we'll cover that, and we'll make a better attempt to track down the Sanjuro remake, because that one is Sanjuro, and then there's like another word or two in Japanese after it, and that is and it came out I think 2007, so it's a lot more recent than pretty much all these other films.
Tsubaki Sanjuro.
Okay, there you have it.
Yes, there you go. 2007. I couldn't find it. I tried really hard to find it, but I couldn't.
But Last Man Standing, I had never heard of this film before we did this project, Brendan. Had you?
I had heard of it. I didn't realize that it was a remake of Yojimbo, but I had definitely heard of it.
And have you watched the TV spinoff starring Tim Allen?
What?
No,
I'm missing a joke.
There's a Tim Allen sitcom on the air right now, as of this recording. It's been on for several years. It's actually pretty popular. It's called Last Man Standing. So
is it available streaming? Because that's how I get everything.
It's probably on Hulu. It's been on Fox.
We don't have Hulu in Canada.
Do you have CBS All Access?
We do, and guess what's not on CBS All Access in Canada?
Star Trek Discovery.
That's correct, or Star Trek Picard. Yes.
Well, you get the Twilight Zone. That's all you need. So.
Yes. Excellent.
Well, moving on. Last Man Standing, the last movie standing in this franchise. Brandon, do you want to get into some trivia?
I do. I'm actually interested to find out what it is that you found out about this movie.
Yeah, now this is not as chronicled as the great, westerns and samurai epics we've covered previously in this series of films, but there's a little bit of trivia here, so let's get into it. This movie, like A Fistful of Dollars, is a retelling of Yojimbo, which of course was based on the 1927 novel Red Harvest. For those who haven't heard, I refer you to our Yojimbo episode, the first one in this series, for more info on that. Now, New Line Cinema, who made this film, produced the film, the studio, wanted to remake Yojimbo as a sci-fi film in the same style as Mad Max or Escape from New York. But writer-director Walter Hill insisted on setting it in Depression-era Texas.
Didn't I say I was looking forward to Yojimbo in space?
You almost had it. But he thought that the rustic landscape was more fitting of his experience directing Westerns. Mm-hmm. So other titles considered for Last Man Standing were Gun Down and Jericho. Jericho being the town this takes place in. And
also, they wanted to call it Last Yojimbo Standing.
I believe that was also a title as well. Yojimbo Standing, very good. Now, Walter Hill, again, the writer-director, he considered this a, quote, free adaptation of Yojimbo rather than a remake because he called the idea of remaking the original by Kurosawa a foolish endeavor. So, although Kurosawa and his co-writer do get credit for story credit for this film because it's the same.
I should hope so.
It's the same thing. It's actually the beats are very similar. for all three, Fistful of Dollars, Yojimbo, and this. But I think this one, actually, the beats are a little more similar on this film than a Fistful of Dollars. I think they kind of copied it more beat for beat, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Walter Hill, who is this guy? He hasn't directed that much stuff, but I'd say the most famous movies that he directed were 48 Hours and another 48 Hours in the 80s. So,
have you seen those?
I have not.
No, neither have I.
But that's a brilliant title, like, for a sequel to 48 Hours. Another 48 Hours. So anyway, that's his claim to fame, I guess.
It's like 28 days later and 28 weeks later.
Exactly. So creative sequel titles. We live for those here on Franchise Fatigue because they're hard to come by. So now Walter Hill and Bruce Willis were apparently not, they weren't really that close making the film. But Hill liked working with Willis. He said it was impersonal. It was like, it's a classic, like, you know what I mean? You know what I want from you? Give me that. Like, he was looking for like a Humphrey Bogart kind of guy. And that's the really basic directions that Hill gave Bruce Willis here, and that's what he came up with. And I actually think Bruce Willis is really well suited for this kind of role and this kind of style and era that they're presenting here. What about you, Brandon?
I was thinking a heck of a lot of Sin City as I was watching this movie.
Yes, I was. Well, the narration too, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, but we can get into that as we talk about it. And of course, he goes by John Smith. So yeah, the man with no name continues because that's clearly, even the guys he tells it to laugh it off. Like, really,
yep.
That's your name. So now, Elmer Bernstein was originally hired to compose the music, but he was fired by Walter Hill after writing half of the score on the basis that it wasn't what he was looking for. Now, when it comes to the score that we did get, Brandon, what did you think of it?
Very forgettable.
Very forgettable and out of place for the era, I think, in some respects as well. So interesting. I would love to hear that first score, and it's like, man, if you thought that was out of place, maybe it would have fit better, at least in my opinion.
Maybe it was like a disco soundtrack that Bernstein did.
Now, James Remar was Walter Hill's choice for the role of Hickey, but the studio chose Christopher Walken for the part instead. And James Remar, he's kind of a character actor. Right now, as of this recording, he can be seen on Black Lightning. He's kind of Black Lightning is that superhero, and if he were James Bond, James Remar's character would be his Q. He kind of supports him with gear and things like that. So that's who he is. And William Sanderson from Blade Runner, right? He's the barkeep, right? So it's good to see him. It's always fun to see familiar faces like him pop up, like Ken Jenkins, who plays the marshal who comes to town, most famous for Scrubs, Dr. Kelso on Scrubs, and also Dr. Stubbs from the Star Trek Next Generation Season 3 episode Evolution. Did you recognize him under that cowboy hat and mustache, Brandon?
I did not, actually. So that's a nice deep Trek reference there.
And as for one last bit of casting of note to me, Leslie Mann, she played Wanda, the prostitute that Bruce Willis is with when they barge in on him and try to kill him. This film, Last Man Standing, came out in 1996, but her other claim to fame in 1996 was The Cable Guy. She was the lead actress in that, and she is also married to Judd Apatow, famous for comedies like 40-Year-Old Virgin, movies like that. That's his wife. So there you go, a little bit part for her. So
I saw Cable Guy. That movie was garbage.
You don't like Cable Guy?
No, that was terrible.
See, I think it's aged really well. Like, I think when it came out, it wasn't what people were expecting, but I think it aged really well. You should revisit it, Brandon. How long ago did you see it?
I don't remember, but it was pretty close to its release on home video, I think.
Okay.
And I'm content to never ever visit that movie again. It scarred me not quite as much as Antichrist by Lars von Trier.
Okay, I've never seen that, but the title doesn't really appeal to me, to be honest.
I double dog dare you to watch Antichrist once.
Fair enough. Are there any sequels? Can we cover that on our podcast?
There are no sequels,
okay,
but you will sequelize that movie in your brain forever.
Very good. Now, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes post-production work done to this film. The original cut was over 2 hours long. The theatrical cut that we're talking about here and watch is 1 hour and 40 minutes. So they cut a good half hour out of this, restructured a few things. But before the final cut was edited, the theatrical trailer came out. And there's a lot of alternate takes and deleted scenes shown in them. Different edits of scenes, extended versions, additional shootout sequence between the two gangs, and actually an alternate ending as well, where Hickey is killed by Smith in a different way. And also
and that
a lot
was
of
shown in the trailer, all of that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
wow.
then some of the promotional stills and pictures also show several deleted scenes.
Weird.
Because originally Smith's confrontation with Doyle and Hickey was going to take place in front of the Alamo Hotel. And that's where Smith hangs a Tommy gun off the machete on a post. So that's where all that was going to go down. Because I'm thinking, there's going to be like an Old West showdown in this ghost town. And they go out in the middle of the desert. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Originally, it was going to be in this town. So Smith was going to shoot Doyle in the crotch as revenge for him having basically enslaved Felina, the character that Bruce Willis sets free to go back to her home, and then he was going to shoot Doyle in the head and kill him, and then he would slowly shoot Hickey, and then that's part of this is in the theatrical trailer. Hickey's holding his gun and staggering around, and he says, "I'll see you in hell." That's from this deleted ending of the film.
Oh, wow.
So. And then also the movie tie-in novel was based off the original screenplay. So there were two key changes from the novel. And then number one, instead of the owner of the Redbird being a man named Joe Monday, it was a middle-aged woman named Dixie Monday. Mm-hmm. And two, there's additional explanation as to why Smith was passing through Jericho, other than just he was heading to Mexico as an outlaw. He went to Jericho looking for an associate who was supposed to meet Smith and give him fake IDs to help him escape. The man in the coffin in the window of the Undertaker's parlor was supposed to be that contact, but he had died, and that is why he didn't get his fake IDs. Also, really random bit of casting: the Undertaker, the guy who like creepily smiles all the time through the window. That is Bill Paxton's dad.
Whoa, that's weird.
And and the only other thing I've known him is from the Spider-Man trilogy, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. He's the Osborn's butler. He's the guy in Spider-Man 3 that says, "Your father died by his own glider." He's that guy. Okay. So anyway, that's him. And then finally, this movie had a budget of $67 million. But it was kind of a bomb, unfortunately. It only made $18 million domestically, and total worldwide made $47 million at the box office. So there was no Sanjuro to this Yojimbo. This was one and done for Last Man Standing. So there you go.
He would have been called Smith John.
Yeah, exactly.
In the sequel. So as I said in our discussion there, thank you for the trivia, Zach. That was very good. As I said in the trivia there, this really made me think a lot of Sin City. And I mean, Bruce Willis is narrating that movie as well. And he's acting and talking the same kind of way. So that was really distracting the whole time I was watching this movie. What did you think about that?
I didn't mind it. I like I said, I think he's well suited for that, actually, because he doesn't have a lot of range, honestly, as an actor. Bruce Willis, like, he's good at what he does, right? And in more recent years, he kind of phones it in. Frankly, I think that's a pretty common criticism of Bruce Willis's performances. But if you put him in that right, in the right lane, he can really, really successful. And like, he was talking to the director about it, and they kind of had an understanding of, like, he's just going to be like a flat, quiet, but hard-nosed kind of Humphrey Bogart type, right? Gets the point across. So I liked it. I bought his performance here. Of course, I did think of Sin City. This actually made me want to go rewatch Sin City because it's very much the same character. And that was actually, I think it was exactly 10 years after this. It was 2006 with Sin City, I think. So interesting. I wonder if they had seen this and were like, hey, we need to tap into that for Sin City, because he's pretty much the same cadence and talk and all that. And I do wonder, because they re-edited the film a lot to cut it down, I wonder if it's like a Blade Runner situation where they added the voiceover, in post to kind of like tie things together or move things along. What do you think?
Okay, so I don't know, but I tell you that I don't understand the hate for the narration in Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. I don't mind it, and I don't mind it here, right? I don't mind.
I like it here. I think it's effective here. Yeah,
right. It's it's a type of a noir type style, like a film noir type style. So I never understood the hatred for it in Blade Runner, and
I've actually never seen the version of Blade Runner with that. I've only seen the director's cut and the final cut. I've never seen the theatrical cut with the
check it out. Yeah, you should check it out. I think it's fine.
But I really love some of the narration here. Like, he has a line. He says, "Quote: She was